Coming up on Here's the Truth with Georgia Ford. The pavement George Floyd took his last breath on is the site of the nation's longest occupied protest. Why organizers say this is only the beginning. Then we hear from community leaders as the spirit of George Floyd lives on 3 years after his death. And buckle up for a special joyride performance at George Floyd Square. Here's the Truth starts right now. Thanks so much for joining us for a special edition of Here's the Truth. I'm independent journalist Georgia Ford. The 3-year anniversary of George Floyd's murder is coming up in just a few days, and so today we're dedicating this episode to remembering his life. It was right here at 38th in Chicago that George Floyd took his last breath under the knee of a Minneapolis police officer, sparking outrage and a global movement. Now, the pavement I stand on today is the epicenter of the longest protest in America. This week, we speak to one of the organizers who shares what unmet demands are still fueling this historic protest.
We cannot forget as a society. Otherwise, we will fail to get to the other side of justice.
The pavement George Floyd took his last breath on now serves as a sacred memorial.
If we forget, we lean into the desires of white supremacy.
Janelle Austin is the executive director of the George Floyd Global Memorial.
That is why this intersection, that is why George Floyd Square is so important. That is why it's still standing. The resistance that the people continue to take is so important.
And she has a key role in the site's ongoing Occupy protest.
I don't think anybody thought that we would still be here 3 years later when everything started. But I think we believed in ourselves to seek justice.
The 38th and Chicago Avenue intersection stands as the longest active protest in the United States.
I don't think we set out for this space, this opportunity to be historic. The people made it historic. The sustained protests made it historic. The creation of an organic memorial made it historic.
For people who say Derek Chauvin was arrested, he was charged, convicted, sentenced, and they don't understand why there's still an active protest here, what do you say to them?
That was accountability, not justice.
She's at the forefront of the protest and is a lead caretaker for the Place of Healing.
Honestly, if they had just finished everything, in 2 months, we would have rolled out and everything would have been done. We would have been happy. But it was the delay. It was the delay of what was identified to be a start toward justice that caused us to figure out, well, how do we prepare ourselves for the long haul? Yeah. And as we prepared ourselves for the long haul, we realized we could do this.
A focal point of their journey to justice is a list of 24 community-driven demands to the city of Minneapolis that they presented back in 2020.
I think that the way in which our system is designed in the United States, our understanding of justice is curated around the legal system. And I think justice is so much bigger than that. I think justice is a way of life. And therefore, that's why we can seek justice in so many different areas. That's why the 24 demands exist.
Janelle says some of the demands were met, like investing money into the memorial, while others, like ending qualified immunity, are still up in the air.
The 24 demands is really rooted in what justice looks like for people living in this neighborhood to have a sustainable way of life. And so what I love about the 24 demands is that it was asking people to address the low-hanging fruit of the injustices that we are feeling, to show that, to demonstrate to the people that we care about becoming a society that is in pursuit of justice.
Do you think if all 24 demands were met that the protest would end?
No. Protests exist to disrupt business as usual, to signal that there is something wrong that needs to be made right. The agreement of the 24 demands when they were first instituted was, if you meet the 24 demands, we will get out the streets. And one of the demands said that you could not reopen the streets until all 4 officers were held in trial. Well, they opened the streets before that. So the demands were already broken. The good faith negotiations were already broken. And so the work towards getting those 24 demands on our end, we still do, we still pursue. But we feel no obligation to remove any of the memorials out of the street if all the 24 demands were met, because they were broken in 2021.
She believes the occupied protest at George Floyd Square represents a wound that will take more than just time to heal.
I've talked to Black people who are like, yes, I haven't returned to George Floyd Square because it's triggering. We feel it in our bodies. Then there are other Black people who say, yes, let's hold it, let's keep it, let's lift it up, let's remember, and they will show up on a regular basis to uphold the space because it is significant to protesting and pushing the institutions that want to forget, that are pushing everybody to forget. So it's necessary. It's a Sankofa space. It's a place of remembrance to figure out how do we change for a better future.
Still ahead in our George Floyd special, local officials and scholars reflect on the day he was murdered. Plus, a special performance with Will Wesley and Ryan Bynum.
This is about George Floyd, but this is about all of the people that they have slain in these streets for no just cause. This is for all stolen lives. George Floyd is the face of hundreds in the last 20 years. In the state of Minnesota, 470 murders at the hands of law enforcement. Stand by our families, because during this time we are hurting. We are re-traumatized. We have to look at a trial that we only wish and pray that our families could get, that our loved ones could receive that same day in trial. George Floyd hasn't even got justice yet, but to even get a trial, most of our families didn't even receive that. And we have to watch this and know that our loved ones never got that day.
Get access to extended interviews and exclusive content by becoming a monthly subscriber. Support the truth. Go to georgiafort.com, select support, and become a monthly subscriber today.
Even though we didn't grow up together, he's my favorite brother.
Hey, sis.
I'm the baby of the family, and he's the gentle giant.
What you know about Port Georgia?
Man, please, that's a classic.
You know when they say people are a rare breed? Yeah, he's that.
I'm sorry, I'll be back in a few hours.
Don't worry, Shug, you know I'm for you.
I know.
Go get the football.
That was my favorite memory. He was always for ya. This is a true story of me, Bridget Floyd, and this guy, George Perry Floyd Jr., my big brother.
Yeah, right here in the square, I prepare. You can feel it in the air. I look right there and say, yeah, I care for my people. Yo, truth don't dare me to do it. We gon' do it all night. I do it for George Floyd and Dante Wright. And of course I do it. Yo, it's all sacred. I gotta do it for my man. Yo, his name is Jacob. This is what I'm saying. My style is sort of freer. Of course I didn't just got a name. Yo, Rakia. I do it for her. Do it for Makia. Magaya. You know how it is. This is like fire. Yo, I'm inspired. Yo, I turn the mic over. I rock it for my people right here in Minnesota. You know how it be, common sense, yes, y'all. I can stand tall like I'm in St. Paul, but this is Minneapolis. I keep on rapping this. Yo, I'm down with the sounds of blackness. This is optimistic when I rock and I can visit. This is how I come, yo, I speak it and I live it. This is how you know my style has never been hollow. I stand right here on 38 at Chicago. It's gonna be George Floyd Street. We honor his name, say his name.
That was a freestyle by rapper Common during his performance here 2 years ago. That emotion the crowd felt still lingers in the hearts and minds of our elected officials and educators. Today, we hear from a few as they reflect on the life of Big Floyd.
I'm listening.
George Floyd's last breath caught on a video that rippled across the world. Sparking a summer of outrage. Outrage that led to MPD's 3rd Precinct being burned to the ground.
I think the community, there was a collective, whoa, like this is happening. And certainly there was a range of emotions between what I would call anything from fear to this needed to happen.
Tabitha Montgomery is the executive director for the Powderhorn Park Neighborhood Association.
I think it was really one of those moments that people at different points were at a loss for words and had all the words, meaning everything from I don't even know what to feel to this can't happen again. And we deserve better, we need better.
Where were you when you found out that George Floyd had been murdered?
I remember I was home that morning and I just happened to be watching the news, and there was a young girl who came on and she was expressing grief.
Dr. Yahuru Williams is a professor and the founding director of the Racial Justice Initiative at the University of St. Thomas.
And when I turned it up and I heard what happened, I just remember immediately going to the internet and kind of looking up what had happened, and then reading the description, the police report from the previous night, which was a complete fabrication of what actually had taken place, and just being stunned, not surprised, but deeply hurt that this had happened again.
You know, what happened with George Floyd is a result of a historic phenomenon.
Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison prosecuted Derek Chauvin, the former officer who took George Floyd's life.
And I'm gonna tell you, in my last election in November, I assure you, people tried to make me pay for fighting for George Floyd. My opponent saying that I didn't like the police, which is not true. I have a lot of respect for our members of law enforcement, but just not the bad ones, not Derek Chauvin.
Derek Chauvin is currently serving a prison sentence of over 22 years for murdering George Floyd and violating his civil rights.
Derek Chauvin was a trainer. He was a leader within the department because he was brutal. That's what he communicates. That's really what to be elite means within the context of policing in our modern era. And that's always been the case. We think about the history of the Minneapolis Police Department, formed in 1867 to police black and brown bodies. What they were doing in 2020 is exactly what they've been trained to do historically.
What do you say to those people who feel like there's been justice and that it's time for people to move on?
They really missed the point of 2020 in that moment. It wasn't just the murder of George Floyd that we were talking about with regard to what happened that afternoon in May. What it was about was the presence of systemic injustice in our community.
I think a parallel that you can see from those examples is the issue of culture in policing.
MPD Chief Brian O'Hara took over the department in the fall of 2022.
I believe that, you can have hundreds and hundreds of pages of policies with which this department does and every major police department in the country does. But I think the real issue is when times are particularly difficult, all we have to fall back on is not necessarily figuring out what page, what chapter of a policy applies, but it's our values and what we stand for.
There's certainly the trajectory or the spectrum of people who believe that there should be no police, right, versus people who believe that there should be more resources for alternate forms of policing for different situations, right, in order to help keep our community safe.
There's no reason why you can have public safety or you can have rights, but you can't have both. We can have both. And a lot of police officers agree with me about that.
Change that many believe needs to happen on the local and national level.
They also worry that people think that this is just a Minneapolis problem. This is a St. Paul problem, it's a Minnesota problem, it's an American problem. We have to wrap our heads around how to deal with that, because then if we look at it in that broader context, this doesn't become about the anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. This becomes about the rebirth of our community, committed in ways that we never have another George Floyd or Daunte Wright or Amir Locke or Philando Castile. The fact that we've had other incidents since George Floyd, to me, means we haven't learned that lesson.
I'm not here to declare a victory because while we won the case, we haven't achieved justice yet. We've done a lot though. I mean, so often in our public conversation, we say nothing has been done, everything has been done. No, actually, it's more in the middle. You know, the fact is, because of George Floyd, we awakened a lot of people. You know, a lot of people were like, and I'm talking about people who may not be African American, but like, well, does that really happen? It's like, yeah, it really happens. And we weren't lying about it before there were videos, cameras, you know? It's just now we got the proof of it.
I find myself hopeful and at the same time deeply disturbed by what I see as this continued desire for this tragedy with a happy ending. People who want to say, we're on the other side of this, right? And this is long work. We all have a responsibility, as John Lewis said, to get in, but stay in this work. And staying in means educating and then acting. And the acting is very important.
In remembering the life of Big Floyd, we're also taking a moment to shine a light on key community leaders who used their voice to fight for racial justice. One of the fiercest voices being civil rights attorney Dr. Nekima Levy-Armstrong, who used her voice during a critical time. She shares with us today what inspired her lifelong commitment to fight for racial justice.
Somebody say that ain't right. That ain't right.
When did you commit your life to fighting for justice? Honestly, I think when I was 9 years old.
We're continuing to stand on solid ground for freedom, justice, and equality, and we will not be silenced.
Nekima says there were so many parallels to what happened in Minneapolis in 2020 and what happened in LA when she was growing up.
I just remember what happened in LA, just the bubbling up of tensions, a lot of it surrounding racial discrimination, as well as police violence and people not feeling free, people feeling trapped, people feeling unheard, people feeling ignored.
Somebody say enough is enough.
Having lived through both the LA and Minneapolis uprisings, many still don't know it's Nekima's proximity to what happened in the 90s that fuels her determination for justice.
I think that my innate sensibility about these things came because of my experience in LA. And particularly thinking about Latasha Harlins.
15-year-old Latasha Harlins was her middle school classmate.
My mom gave me a call in the spring of '91, I believe. And she said, Nekima, she was like, you remember Latasha Harlins? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I just saw her, you know, before I left to come to Brooks, and she was like, she got killed.
Harlins was gunned down by a Korean store owner in 1991.
We talked about our hopes, our dreams, where she was going to go to school.
Shot in the back of the head after being accused of stealing a bottle of orange juice with cash in hand.
She was seen as a threat. That was really my first real understanding that Black lives don't matter in this country. Seeing her be killed, seeing the frustration, the rage, the outrage in our community, seeing our cries go on deaf ears, seeing the people fight back by burning down the store.
The owner was convicted of voluntary manslaughter, but was only sentenced to 400 hours of community service, a ruling that incited public outrage. Ultimately, Latasha's killing was one of a series of injustices, including the police beating of Rodney King, that led to the LA uprising in '92.
I was able to go to the viewing, you know, with my sister, and we saw Latasha's body. She was dressed in white in a casket. I'm like, you know, just seeing a little girl that you know dead. same age as me, did not look like herself, you know, like she was wearing white, but it was like her innocence had been taken away through that process. And it was just so hurtful, so traumatizing. It always had an impact on me throughout my life because I thought about the fact that Latasha didn't get a chance to grow up and become the woman that she wanted to become.
We have two different justice systems, one for black people, one for white people, both separate and unequal.
Nakima's proximity as a child to one of the key incidents that sparked the LA uprising still informs her work 30 years later.
Black people in Minneapolis and Hennepin County are often punished very harshly in contrast to their white counterparts, and it is a part of a pattern.
I feel that my mission in life is to advocate for the best interests of black people, particularly low-income black people who have been historically underserved and who face challenges because of unjust laws and policies.
Still ahead, buckle up for a special joyride where we learn how the spirit of George Floyd still lives on in the local artists we all know and love.
To me, public functionary is the future. I think just this rootedness in really early career artists, in emerging practices and emerging artists, it's sort of like this future-looking moment.
Public functionary to me has always been about artist support and providing opportunity and resources to artists, particularly artists who haven't had access to those opportunities in the past.
Public functionary is the place where you really can plant your ideas and watch them grow.
That's public functionary. It's like in the now, but it's really investing in where we're going to be in 5 years and 10 years.
Today's Joyride is sponsored by Nail Partners. For this week's Joyride, we have a special performance with Will Wesley and Ryan Bynum.
I've been running ever since. It's been a long, long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. It's been too hard to live in, but I'm still afraid to die, 'cause I don't know what growing up in the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. I go to the movies, I go downtown. Somebody keeps telling me, don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I go. Change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Yeah. Then I go to my brother. Yeah. I say, brother, help me please. But he winds up knocking me down to coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. One more time, right? Hey, it's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Yeah.
Today's Joyride is sponsored by Nail Partners, bringing a renewed approach to commercial real estate and urban planning. Thanks so much for watching Here's the Truth. Before we let you go, we want to let you know about an opportunity to be featured in our season finale next week. Just take a video of yourself reflecting on what season 1 meant to you and post it with the hashtag HTTfinale, and you might just see yourself on the big screen next week. In the meantime, have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next Saturday at 11. Coming up next week on Here's the Truth.
There's nothing wrong with being very compassionate in your coverage.
You may remember her from CNN or Al Jazeera. We sit down with Emmy Award-winning journalist Soledad O'Brien to talk about the importance of independent media. Don't miss the season finale of Here's the Truth next Saturday at 11 a.m. on the CW Twin Cities.
Are you ready to get in the best shape of your life? At Sir Boxing Club, we offer high-intensity workouts that will push you to your limits and help you reach your fitness goals. Our gym is equipped with state-of-the-art equipment and a family atmosphere. Experienced trainers will guide you every step of the way, whether you're a beginner or a seasoned fighter. Come join us today and start your journey towards a stronger, healthier you. Are you looking for a unique shopping experience? One that celebrates and supports Black businesses and culture? Introducing the Black Market, the ultimate destination for all your shopping, eating, and entertainment needs. At the Black Market, you'll find over 70 Black-owned vendors, all under one roof. From food and fashion to books and art, there's something for everyone at the Black Market. So come visit on the second Saturday of the month from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. to experience the best of what Black businesses have to offer. Visit the Black Market today and show your support for Black businesses and culture. Black business is beautiful at the Black Market.